John Brown is a senior security evangelist and a member of the Cymru outreach team. Prior to joining Cymru, he was a CTO of a regional ISP that provided internet and voice services via fiber optic and microwave technology. Please welcome John.
Let's see if I can make technology work. My password is Moshi, by the way. I just changed it. All right. Are we actually, is this being filmed? Oh, okay. I'll try not to make your life too hard. I wander a little bit, so you're good? All right, cool. Good afternoon, folks. My name is John Brown. I'm a senior security evangelist for Team Cymru. We're based in Florida. We're about a 20-year-old company. We do very interesting threat intelligence things. Today I'm going to chat a bit about network hygiene, DDoS mitigation, and prevention methods. This will be a fairly quick, fast talk. If you have questions about things, feel free to ask them in the middle of the presentation when they're relevant. I don't mind that. If we need to get into a further discussion, we'll find me in the hallway and I'll be happy to sit down with a pen and paper and we can geek out as long as we need to geek out. Trademark disclaimer, I might have some trademarks in here. Those trademarks belong to the people who own them, not me, not Team Cymru. We're just using them. Quick view on our agenda. Who is Team Cymru? What's network hygiene? Why do we care? How are networks abused? What things can we do about that? Some examples, and then some closing comments, questions, and answers. So, as said, my name is John Brown. I'm a CISSP. I'm also formerly an ISC Squared CISSP instructor. So I was certified by ISC Squared to teach those classes as well. I also used to teach microtik training. 35 years basically as a networking internet geek. Ran ICANN's LRoot DNS server, which is one of the 13 critical DNS servers. Ran that for about 3.5 years for ICANN. How many of you know what peering DB is? Okay, I got one hand, two hands. That means the rest of you should, homework assignment tonight is go look up what peering DB is. I'm an admin on peering DB. It is the database of peering and interconnect for telecoms across the world and internet exchanges. Very useful information if you are doing any kind of cyber investigation. You're trying to figure out, well, who is this AS, where are they connected, what's going on, what are their net blocks, along with some of the stuff like at bgp.he.net. Who knows what Nanog is? Anybody? Okay, I'm on the program committee for Nanog. If you've got a great talk, we'd love to hear about it and get you in and how you present at Nanog. So there's my pitch for Nanog. I am a recovering past owner of a regional ISP business, ran it for about 17 years. Some of you here may know me from that world. I have been there for almost 3 years now. Okay. So one other thing I do real quick, I teach people how to fly airplanes. So I'm also a flight instructor. Who is Team Cymru? We are about a 15, 20-year-old company. This is the marketing slide. That's how I get paid to be able to go. I gotta have the marketing slide up there. We are a 15-plus-year-old company. We do threat intelligence, and we have lots of reputational things. We have a commercial side, and we have an outreach side. The outreach side is stuff that we do for free, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those, but this is not a sales pitch. If you want to know more about Team Cymru, there's some stuff there. Go to our website. The one thing I will is sort of pimp for a second, is we have an email mailing list, Dragon News Bites. It's a really great list. It's free to sign up. You have to be vetted to be on it, but it's a great list of relevant cybersecurity issues that go through our S2 team, etc., and then we publish that out. So if you're interested, go to the Cymru website, sign up for the Dragon News Bites. It's free, comes out daily, weekly, and Brenner will be happy to get you set up there. So, into our talk. What is hygiene? Hygiene, it's a series of practices. It's about washing your hands and keeping yourself clean and helping to promote a healthy environment for not only for yourself, but for your neighbor, right? And we all sort of want to have a healthy environment. We all want to be able to have a hygiene. We don't like having stinky neighbors, as it were. And so we do some basic things. We brush our teeth, we wash our hands, we take showers, et cetera, and all of that helps promote a much healthier environment for us humans to live in. So what about network hygiene? Well, just as it's important for us to have good, healthy habits for how we as humans interact and work, we need to have good, healthy habits about how our networks connect and interconnect. So generally, network hygiene is going to be about keeping your network clean. So a quick question. How many folks in here run a ISP or service provider type network? Email hosting, web hosting, internet service provider, etc. Raising hands, anybody? Okay. Couple. How many of you run or are part of an enterprise network? It's a UNM campus, CNM, City of Albuquerque, State of New Mexico, etc. Right? Okay, so both service providers and enterprises, we need to have the ability to have good network hygiene and be able to have clean networks. By doing this, when a problem pops up, it'll be easier to spot and resolve. Back in 2006, my friend Darren Karenberg from RIPE NCC, RIPE is the regional internet authority for Europe, similar to what ARIN is, American Registry of Internet Numbers, is here in the US. Network hygiene pays off. There's a link to that at the end of my slides. It talks about how network hygiene can actually pay off in your operational costs and how your network runs. Why do we care? Each of us network operators should care about network hygiene because, quite honestly, if I'm running a bad network, Krista probably isn't going to be as trusting or as thrilled about that because I am potentially an emitter of problems. I'm potentially a source of problems for her network, right? So there's a trust relationship. If I'm running a good, clean network, then she's got, oh, I know I can call that guy John Brown up and he'll probably be able to help me solve a problem in his network. Because generally he has the mindset to run a clean network and not create problems, right? It helps reduce the problem resolution. Also, like I said, it's about trust. It's about your internal and external customers. External customers, if you're a service provider organization, so even if you're a UNM or CNM, you're doing distance education, telehealth, telemedicine, those things like that, you have external customers. Knowing that you are having a clean network will help build trust and help build brand with those customers out there. We each have a duty at the end of the day to run a clean network. Not only for ourselves and our own customers, but also for the person sitting to the right and sitting to the left of us. Well, how do malicious actors abuse networks? IP spoofing is my big, wonderful thing I love to talk about. How many people here do not know what IP spoofing is? Feel free to raise your hand because I'll dive into it for about a minute. We'll talk about it. Okay? Real quick. It's where I forge the source IP address and the IP packet, right? Dell is sending out a packet, but he's not putting his address as the source in there. He's putting Kristen in. Yes, I do use people in the audience as examples. I owe both of them beers now, I think. So Dell's going to send out a packet, and he's going to put Kristen's IP address in it. Well, let's pretend that Kristen is still back over at Water Authority, right? So he's going to put Water Authority's IP address in that source packet address, and you're going to send that out on the internet. Source spoofing. Well, there's more than just one victim, right? There's the victim of Water Authority because their IP is being used, probably because they want to turn around and use that to send packets over to Layla and DDoS her, making it look like it's coming from Water Authority, right? That's the price of helping you solve it. Right? So there's all kinds of victims in the middle. It's not just the DDoS attack victim. It's the transport and peering providers in the middle. It's the folks with the open recursive name servers in the middle of the network or out at the edge that are being leveraged. In the Internet Engineering Task Force world, we have what's known as Best Current Practice 38. It's been around for 24 plus years. It talks about how to prevent source spoof packets from leaving your network. I'll leave you a little tidbit real quick. I did a study about 6 months ago of New Mexico networks. Yeah, we're not doing real good about source spoofing, folks. I'm not going to put a name and shame on it, but yeah, most governmental organizations are allowing source spoof packets. Most of our ISPs are allowing source spoof packets to leave their networks. Not a good thing. There are simple ways to prevent source spoof packets from leaving your network. Unicast reverse path forwarding, we'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute, is a great way to do it. Your Cisco, your Juniper, probably your Foundry, probably your Palo Alto, probably any other routing device out there knows how to do the RPF today. So, source spoof of packets allow us to leverage open recursive name servers and allows us to send that, right? So let's call it an amplification attack. So how does that work very quickly? So I'm going to use my three victims here in the room again, right? But I'm going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to DDoS Dell, pretending he still works at the city of Albuquerque, which I know he doesn't. We're going to DDoS Dell back here, okay? Layla over there is an open recursive name server, and Kristen, just because she has a ton of security credentials, we're going to use her as our malicious actor, right? We know she's got her white hat pen testing and all those other white hat certifications. We're going to make her a black hat today. So she's going to launch a packet. What she's going to do is she is going to put in that packet a source address of Dell. And she's going to send that packet to their open recursive name server over at Layla. Layla is going to receive this tiny little packet of a DNS query, and she's going to answer that query, and she's going to send it where? Audience participation. Where is she going to send it? She's going to send it to Dell, right? She's going to send a big packet to Dell, a big answer, right? We do a DNS query for the resource record type any, which a lot of folks are now blocking, thank goodness. But we're going to do it any, and then all of the NS record, DNS sec stuff, all that junk is going to go flying towards Dell, and we're going to end up crashing his server. We're going to end up flooding his transit or peering links over there. Well, that is happening, that amplification is happening because the network that Kristen is connected to is enabling or allowing source spoof packets to leave. If Kristen's transit provider did not allow source spoof packets to leave their network, this would be a non-issue. DNS is not the only one. NTP can also be used as a reflection. How many of you have ever heard of a very large hosting company called OVH? Okay, well, they had a big DDoS a couple, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think, months or so ago. And in their report about that, they came out and said that the part of the problem was OpenNTP and OpenDNS and source spoof packets. So let's look at New Mexico. How many open recursive DNS servers we have that can be used, and many of them have been used for DNS amplification attacks. Throughout the state, I saw this morning 950 servers. In the city of Albuquerque, being the largest of that, there are 472. If you'd like to take a look, go to Shodan. I have the happy little Shodan query that I use right here. All of these servers are able to be used to attack others on the internet. I do not see a reason why, fill in the blank, large organization in Albuquerque needs 26 open recursive name servers reachable on the global internet. Especially when you look at the DNS for their domains, they're using 2 of them and they're in the same exact IP space. All right, moving on, let's talk about what bogons are, because bogons is another hygiene issue. Bogons are IP addresses that should not be out on the internet. RFC 1918 is one of those typical blocks. You know, the 10.x, the 192.168, the 172.12, those networks shouldn't be there. But 192.0.2.0, I think if I get that right, shouldn't be there either. There's a whole list of special use addresses that are available through and assigned by the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, IANA, right? But there's also other bogons. There are routes that are reclaimed by the regional registries, right? So we have 5 regional registries in the world. We have Aaron in North America. We have Wright in Europe. We have AP Nick in Asia. We have Latinx in Latin America. And we have Afrinic in Africa. Those organizations will reclaim IPs. An ISP goes out of business, a company turns in their addresses, some other reclamation action happens. When those addresses come back, they are not out on the public internet. They shouldn't be used on the public internet. You shouldn't see them in your routing table. And so, whoops, one button, back. So these are reclaimed and are there. We maintain at Team Cumry a list of Bogons, and you can get that feed, it's free. But here's a list of Martians. These are IP addresses that should never be on the internet. How many of you are filtering these so they don't leave your network? You should be. You should not allow packets to leave your network going to these IPs, because these IPs should never be out on the internet through your transit or peering providers. Right? And you shouldn't be receiving packets from the internet with these as source IPs, because they shouldn't be there in the first place. So you should make sure that you are blocking and dropping that traffic, whether it's IP4 or IP6. We also have Bogon ASNs, Autonomous System Numbers. So here's a list of reserved ASs. It constantly changes, so you want to keep up to date with it. But there are folks out announcing prefixes on the global internet using unallocated or reserved AS numbers. Malicious actors use these things because they know attribution is not something that can easily be done, right? Because there's no who is lookup for this. You're not going to go to Hurricane Electric's lookup tools and see, oh, that's Billy Bob's company, right? Because they're not allocated. So from an attribution perspective, it makes it harder for an investigator to figure out who and what and where. Mostly we have misconfigured that happens in the BGP routing, but Bogons can also be used for DDoS, and they can also be used to subvert traffic, even if it ends up being a regional subversion. Bogus ASs can be used for route hacks, route hijacks, route leaking, etc. Looking into the global BGP table, I typically see hundreds to thousands of Bogon IPs in the routing table that shouldn't be there. Somebody somewhere is announcing them, which means somebody somewhere is allowing them into the routing table, which then propagates across the rest of the world. Criminals love this because it's harder to catch them when these routes are this short-lived. So how do we reduce it? Well, you can reduce by filtering your inbound BGP routes not to accept that. If you're running BGP, also make sure your outbounds aren't sending out anything. We're not leaking our private IP space via BGP to our transit and our peering providers. Same thing in internet exchanges. Or you can also make use of Team Cumry's BGP feed, and that feed will allow you to bring it in through BGP and be able to drop traffic to or from those prefixes. All right, so the next thing we can deal with and trying to help mitigate and keep the network clean and good network hygiene is RPKI. How many folks here know what RPKI is? Okay, RPKI is a public key infrastructure that is used to sign your routing announcements. It's used to say this prefix 198.125.5/24 belongs to me. And it is cryptographically signed and maintained so that we know it actually belongs to me. Doesn't belong to somebody else, and if somebody else is announcing it, they're not correct. RPKI is fast and furiously coming, folks, to a network transit provider near you. In other words, the big ISPs now are no longer accepting routes from customers that do not have RPKI signed routes. You can go to ARIN, American Registered Internet Numbers. It takes less than 30 minutes if you own your own IP block. It takes less than 30 minutes to use their hosted solution to sign your prefixes, your routes. The benefit is that when Dell signs his routes to the city of Albuquerque, again, we're just pretending we're going back in time because we know he's not there today. We go back in time, Dell signs those routes to the city of Albuquerque. That is an attestation that says these prefixes belong to the city of Albuquerque. If somebody in Pakistan decides to snag those IPs and announce them, they're not going to get very far because that attestation is false. They can't put it out there. They can't originate it with the right origin AS and other data. They can't pass that certification. That is done in the routers in real time. All right? So, all of the regional registries, like Aaron, IPNIC, etc., have an easy process to do this. Right? Soon, your routes will not be accepted, and soon is probably 2025. Route RPKI, as I said, also helps keep route hacking from happening. If we look into New Mexico, I can tell you that there are multiple cities within the state of New Mexico whose routes are not signed by RPKI at all. I can also tell you that there are very large governmental state agencies here that have their routes, 169 dot something or whatever it might be, have no RPKI entry and no Internet Route Registry entries either. Those networks are at a higher risk of hijacking than those folks that have signed prefixes. Signing RPKI, as I said a minute ago, is a 30-minute process and or less, and it's very easy, very simple to do, doesn't cost any money because you're already an Aaron customer, and poof, now your routes are protected. If you need help with it, Aaron is perfectly happy to help you. You can send us an email at Team Cumring. I'm happy to help you. There's plenty of folks that are willing to help you with it, and a lot of us will help you with it for free, or a good breakfast burrito. So DDoS and network hygiene. We talked already a little bit about it, but sometimes we want to make sure we hit it. Number one, biggest thing is stop allowing source spoof packets to leave your network. Your neighbor to the left of you and the neighbor to your right of you will be very happy about that. If we did not have source spoof packets capability out there today, I bet you a huge amount of our DDoS problems would disappear. We wouldn't have those DDoS issues. Because the ability to launch an amplification attack and leverage an open name server or an open NTP server would be removed. Charge-in is another abuse. So become an internet hero. Stop source spoof packets from leaving your network. So, how many folks here run a network that uses BGP? A few of us? Okay, cool. So, you can use BGP for security. A lot of us will jump up and down and say, well, wait a minute, BGP is not very secure, John. It's got all kinds of problems. Look at all the security issues. And you're going to use it for security? Heck yeah. Because it's a great signaling protocol to quickly announce IP prefixes across your network or between peers that are bad IPs, right? So you can get IP address feeds that have reputational data from folks like Spamhaus, Team Cumring, and others, ingest that into your BGP, set a community string on it, set a route policy up that allows you to drop traffic to or from those IPs. Poof, problem goes away. When I ran my ISP, there were times where I had over 30,000/32s in my routing table that were malicious IPs that none of my customers could ever get to or receive from because we would drop it at our edge to the outside world. And what that did is that cut off a huge amount of problems that folks could have had. The moment that phishing attack clicked on it and then the malware tried to go and find its C2, oh, I'm sorry, the C2 is dead because I'm dropping it up at the transit side. So now we can't phone home and we can't continue the malicious threat because I'm dropping it. In 15 years of doing that, I had 0 false positives. It works. Unicast burst path forwarding is your friend. And since I am between you and lunch and the kind lady here just told me I have 5 minutes, we'll keep going. You want to learn more about URPF? Find me in the hallway. Remote trigger black hole is another tool. Basically, you're running BGP, so let's say Kristen is my transit provider. I set up a deal with her where if I announce a prefix with a 65505:666 community string on it, that tells her to set a policy in her router automatically, no human intervention required, to drop traffic to that prefix I just sent her. So now, she can drop all that traffic before it comes to me. So if I'm getting DDoS, I have my one little 1 gigabit connection, and there's 100 gigs coming at me, I can have her drop it at her end, where hopefully she has more capacity to be able to absorb that traffic. Very quick, easy thing to do. Yeah, we have a free service for that too. What can you do? If you're an ISP, validate your external facing route filters. Make use of RPKI, please. Filter based on RPKI. Make sure your internet route registry data sets are up to date. Most of us in the state of New Mexico do not have internet route registry data for IP prefixes that is up to date or valid. We also don't have who is data. There's a very large governmental entity that still has its IP addresses under the name of somebody who hasn't worked there for at least 15 years. And they know that it needs to be done, and it just hasn't ever been cleaned up. So if there's a contact issue, who do they go? They send an email to the person that doesn't exist. That doesn't help in fixing problems. Make sure you're only announcing your prefixes and that they're valid. If you're not sure what's happening with your BGP world, set up a test router. A little $60 microchip would be great for that. Set up remote trigger with your peers. Set that up in advance. Know how it works. Have an SOP document created so that you have the ability to understand that policy. Filter prefixes that are on bogons. If you're an enterprise, please make sure you don't have source boot packets leaving your network. If you're running BGP, do many of the things I just mentioned, right? Make sure your route registry data is up to date. Additional things, go read BCP 38, Best Concurrent Practice number 38. Like I said earlier, it's been around for about 24 years. Look at using community services out there to help drop traffic and improve your network. We all in the community need to work together to improve our network hygiene. If someone sees something, say it, talk about it, help your neighbor improve their hygiene, regardless of what organization. Consultants that are in here, MSPs that are in here, if you see an issue with one of your clients, help educate them on how to go about doing things to prevent source boot packets and other malicious activity, open recursive name servers, stuff like that from being on the network. Real quick, my take example, I won't bore you with it, but it's really short and simple to set up a bogon filtering. Closing comments, we're all responsible for network hygiene. That's probably the biggest thing. NetFlow, use NetFlow to see the visibility of your network. Take time to validate your routes, take time to validate what you're sending out. Take time to make sure you're not running services that can be exploited. This is an ongoing practice. Make sure you're not doing source boot. I think I talked about source boot packing a couple times. At the end of the day, please do not run smelly networks. If you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to send an email to outreach@comrie.com or find me in the hall. Many of you probably know where to find me otherwise. And I'm sure we're out of time, but if there are questions, I'll be happy to take them if we're allowed to get questions. And there's some documents up there if you want to screenshot that of the stuff. If you want a copy of my slide deck, find me. I'll be happy to swap business cards with you and send you a copy of my slide deck. So I'll stand for questions or comments or throwing tomatoes. I think the gentleman over here has a question. By the way, while she's walking over, these blinky LED things that they were in the soldering lab, that is such the dope. That was cool. Whoever thought that up, yeah, bravo. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if there's an equivalent of a malicious IP list, some sort of reputation service for speaking networks. Is that feasible or valuable? You heard of such?
There isn't directly, but if you go to manners, NANRS.org, and start looking at how the mutually assured routing world wants to talk about how folks with routers should play with each other, you'll get a list of people who are not stinky. One other thing I'm going to add real quick with regards to source boost packets and why it hasn't been done and why it needs to be done. For a lot of reasons, DDoS was a moneymaker for large ISPs. They charged you based on usage and consumption, so they were not fiscally motivated to really help solve the problem because they're making money off of that overage that you are experiencing right now, right? The United Kingdom, the UK, a few years ago came out with a rule that said that you could not sell internet access to the government of the UK, His Majesty's government, unless you could validate on an ongoing basis that you did not allow source boost packets to come. I wonder whether or not our procurement folks here in the state need to start thinking about putting that into RFPs. So you're buying internet access from those that are definitely not going to run a stinky network. Any other questions? I hope this was valuable. I hope you guys learned something. If you got questions, see me in the hallway. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much.